This is Andrew Stotz, and today, what makes this company great? Apple. We're going to look into what is the competitive advantage of Apple, and most importantly, does that competitive advantage feed through to the financial performance of Apple? Because we know that to truly have a sustainable competitive advantage, it must show in the financials. Let's get into it and look at Apple in a little bit more detail. We all know Apple because of Steve Jobs and our iPhones and the stuff like, but let's get into it in a little bit more detail. We can see that what has contributed to this success of Apple? Well, supply chain management, low manufacturing costs in China, where 95% of Apple products are made. Marketing strategies, highly recognized logo, new limited products create urgency among customers. Strong financial position, large scale investment in research gives Apple a competitive edge over its competitors. Here we can see the iconic logo, and it's Apple's known for its innovative and user-friendly app products, has a strong following of dedicated customers who feel emotionally connected to their devices and services. This is a great point to highlight the concept of from one of the great books on strategy, which is Start With Why. And Start With Why basically tells us that you want to try to make this connection between the brand and the consumer and a differentiated connection. And that originally started with Apple when Steve Jobs came up with advertisements like Think Different and others. So they definitely have built that connection. So let's look at the best-selling products. First, you got 232 million iPhones sold in 2022, 82 million iPods. I mean, who would have thought? Earphones, earplugs, come on. Amazing. And then, of course, iPads, 61 million of those. Let's look at Apple's revenue by country or region. First, North America, 170 billion US, Europe, 95 billion, China, 74 billion. Now you can see why China is such a huge part of the performance of Apple. If a trade war happens, Apple is in serious trouble, not just because of the supply chain lines, but also because Chinese people are a big consumer of Apple products. In the rest of Asia, about 29 billion, and then 26 billion in Japan. I was just looking at some news, and here's an interesting one, which is basically talking about how Apple is quietly creating an AI chatbot to compete with ChatGPT. But unlike ChatGPT, this Apple tool basically isn't meant for public consumption right now, and the company still has no plans for releasing it, but they have the cash to be able to do whatever they want. The founder, of course, was Steve Jobs. He died at the age of 56, seems so young, and he was named CEO of the decade by Fortune magazine. We'll come back to him in a moment, but let's now try to understand a little bit more about the competitive advantage. So Apple was founded in 1976. It's in the infotech sector, about 147,000 people, and about 316, I think it is right now, but let's say more than $300 billion in revenue. And it's iPhone services like Apple Store, the App Store, Apple Music, iCloud, and then Mac computers are the main products. So what is its competitive advantage? Well, product differentiation, user experience, and strong brand loyalty. So how did it achieve this? By designing premium hardware and software integration, focusing on aesthetics and user-friendly interfaces, investing in research and development, and effective marketing campaigns. But I think that connection between hardware and software was what really made Apple stand out in the early days. So Steve Jobs is the iconic co-founder of Apple who revolutionized the tech industry. He's known for his visionary leadership. He played a pivotal role in creating the groundbreaking products. Here's a picture of him with the launch of the iPhone, which was pretty crazy. I remember that happening. His relentless pursuit of perfection and emphasis on design aesthetics set Apple apart from its competitors. And after being ousted from Apple in 1985, Jobs went on to found Next Computer, which eventually led to his triumphant return to Apple in 1997. And I think it's important to understand what was going on when he went to Next Computer. And basically, he had hired John Sculley, who was president at the time of PepsiCo, and he convinced him to come and run for Apple, run Apple as president and CEO by saying, "You want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life," which was a great line. And John Sculley came, but Apple turned to be a very different environment from what John Sculley could handle. And so, but eventually the move was to get Steve Jobs out, which is incredible. So Jobs went to Next, and one of the things that Jobs did was focus on operating system. And he developed a new operating system at Next, and that became, coming back to Apple, that became the operating system for Apple. So sometimes your defeats become your victories. But the question we have to ask is the company financially world-class? So here's how I measure competitive advantage. 10 years ago, I created the world-class benchmarking scorecard to measure competitive advantage. And the scorecard basically is, I gather the yearly and quarterly data of companies, 26,000, and then I calculate our profitable growth score, which is a composite of both profitability and growth. And we then compare the subject company to sector peers of a similar size and assign a ranking. Decile 1 is best, decile 10 is worse. And a score of 1 or 2 is financially world-class. Then I look at it over 12 months. And here we can see Apple's score. The company is absolutely financially world-class, comparing against 660 large infotech companies. So would you like to see how your company measures up? Well, if you've got a company greater than 15 million in revenue, just drop me a line and I'm happy to score your company. What we can see in the case of Apple is that the company is able to maintain a competitive advantage. That's it for today. Let me know if you've got a comment in an idea in the comments or a company you'd like me to look at. Have a wonderful day ahead.